Good afternoon, good evening and good night and welcome to the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. Today, my name is Craig Telfer and right now I am joined by my close associate Shaughan McGuigan.
Hello there.
And you know what happens when the Reverend Jim Jones and Leo Ryan of the Terrace get together? That's right. One of us is the charismatic leader of the People's Temple religious organisation who recently created a socialist paradise in Guyana. The other is serving in the United States House of Representatives and is concerned the movement is holding people there against their will. And during a trip to Johnstone to investigate these claims of abuse, one of us will be shot dead at an airstrip by Temple security guards. And later that evening, the other will command his congregation of 918 followers to drink cyanide-laced Flavour Aid before shooting himself to death. And while we're on that runway and while we're glugging on that delicious grape-flavoured soft drink, we just might have time to talk a little bit about some lower league Scottish football.
You very much went on a kind of niche recording about, religion and, doing away with yourself.
Yes, I mean, given last week that we talked about Heaven's Gate and I think it was the 39 people that committed mass suicide, we've upped the ante. It's 918 now. I think that's the biggest. That's the biggest. So I don't think we can really top that. And I do think we have to move away from suicidal religious sects. But as I've said very often, it gets harder and harder to come up with these intros. So you do have to get a little bit abstract, and very much with Reverend Jim Jones and Leo Ryan. That's exactly what we've done here.
Fair play. I have to research that. I don't know too much about them.
Oh, the Johnstown, it is wild. Go and read. I mean, my Wikipedia is what I've read, but it's a very long article, very well sourced article. So please, if Shaughan, give it a go. Listener, if you want to find out more about Reverend Jim Jones, go and do so. But yeah, a really fascinating story that he was able to build a sort of commune in Guyana.
I still can't imagine me buying into his theories. I can't imagine me being in any kind of situation where I'm like, actually, he's talking a lot of sense.
Well, Shaughan, you just said that I'll need to read up on Jim Jones, and maybe after you do read up on Jim Jones, you might pay a wee visit to Guyana yourself and check it out. But nevertheless, well, Shaughan is contemplating the People's Temple. We're back with our patented 3-game podcast looking at the very best from the lower leagues. As always, we'll be focusing on one game from the Championship, another from League One, and a final match from League Two, and anything else that's caught our eye. What hasn't caught our eye, sadly, is the concept of having a laugh, but nevertheless, the discussion around the football should be worthwhile. Shaughan, are you well?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. I'm good, and slightly bringing my personal/professional life within touching distance of lower league Scottish football. I was hosting a sportsman's dinner through in Motherwell on Friday, and one of the speakers was none other than East Fife manager Dick Campbell.
Wow, that must have been good. Were you blithering to him?
Yes, I was. I got speaking to him. I was sitting at the top table with him, so we'd ample opportunity to chat. Very interested just talking to him about League One in general, his career. Funny moment when I did a wee intro at the start, basically introducing him and the second speaker, Willie Young. I basically used Wikipedia to source Campbell's career. And when I was doing the introduction for the second time, it was actually his turn to speak. Beforehand, he'd actually written all his achievements in an envelope and handed it over to me. So I think it's something that he's on Wikipedia. It's like 3 league titles and 4 promotions. But he counts 11 promotions. So I wonder if he's including his achievements as an assistant manager, maybe with like Dunfermline and elsewhere, and amongst that.
I'm more interested about the fact that he wrote it down on an envelope rather than just a piece of paper. That's unusual.
Well, it was the only thing he had to hand was an envelope. And it was quite funny because it finished up with all his achievements, including being a member of Glen Eagles and getting presented with an MBE last year. Not a bad CV for the son of a miner for Hillaby. That's how it finished. And he got a big cheer, and he does his routine. It's quite funny, like talking to Dick Campbell and then seeing Dick Campbell performing. He really leans into what everyone's perception of Dick Campbell is. I mean, I won't spoil it because I'm sure people listening to will have the opportunity to go and see Dick Campbell at an after dinner event or a sportsman's dinner, a speaker's night or whatever. But he was talking about, a ladies' man. Like, have you ever heard the expression, he likes the smell of the perfume? You ever heard that before?
I don't think so, no.
I'd never heard it before. I was absolutely into myself. Just the idea of somebody that fancies him a big hit with women. He likes the smell of the perfume. I thought that was really, really funny.
Just out of interest, so you were asked to go and kind of host this event in Motherwell. I can only presume that A, Tam Cowan wasn't available, and B, Graham Thewlis wasn't available.
And C, Gordon Duncan wasn't available. Yes, you're absolutely correct. They had pretty much exhausted their Rolodex of names of Wheel Kent Motherwell supporters. And so Big Graham, and to his credit, I've got to thank Graham for that. Graham passed on my details, and so I was more than happy to step in. I've done a couple of things like this. Obviously, I'd hosted events for Dundee United earlier in the year, and they were great fun. So it's just good fun. The people at Fir Park Corner were really good. David Fraser, the guy that was organising it, really sound, really helpful, just gave me everything I need to go and basically be myself and present. And Dick Campbell and Willie Young, really good, really, really funny, and well worth going and listen to if you get the chance in the future.
Sounds class.
And now, Willie Young and Dick Campbell are a superb partnership, but the best partnership of all is the partnership between the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast and NordVPN. Now, NordVPN is the best and most secure virtual private network in the business, and it's one that myself and Shaughan both use and both recommend. Now, we were contemplating discussing NordVPN in the style of Norm MacDonald eulogising the man great, but it's actually just too good a product to take the piss out of. I mean, there's been times where you might be the same, Shaughan. You've not been able to make the football, but because of broadcasting restrictions, you can't stream it in the UK. With NordVPN, you can get the access to the action from the comfort of your own home. And you, Shaughan, you're away on holiday next week. And by signing up to NordVPN, which you already do, you can access your favourite shows from abroad, and you will never miss a single second of Hollyoaks. And I know you're right into it, and you were telling me it's getting really good just now.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because so you're right. I'm away on Saturday, and I'm away to Rome and Naples and Sorrento. But if you think that means that I don't want to keep on board with what's happening on Hollyoaks, then you are mistaken, because I believe that there's some kind of storyline with Dee Hutchison. She's been involved now for 8 years, but I think next week might be our last in Hollyoaks, and I do not want to miss it. So I am glad that you have discussed NordVPN, because I'll be getting involved.
Yeah, again. The UK government's new online safety bill might have restricted your access to the internet, but with NordVPN, it allows you to bypass those obstacles and browse the World Wide Web with the freedom and the safety the way things should be. So by signing up to NordVPN, you can go online and you won't leave empty-handed, if you know what I mean. They take your security very seriously, and your data will be kept safe and secure while it's in use. So if you are interested in signing up, and myself and Shaughan highly recommend it, you can do so for a free 30-day money-back guarantee by going to NordVPN/TerracePod. That's NordVPN/TerracePod for a free 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the episode description. Chicken, steak, never tasted so good.
I did say to Fowler we could do it like the man great, but he didn't seem too keen.
No, I went back and watched the man great video. I was howling. It's so funny, and I think they very shortly, Norm MacDonald show lost their sponsorship from from Man Great. We don't want to do that with NordVPN, so we're playing it straight. Remember, NordVPN.com/TerracePod. The link is in the episode's description. But now, enough of that. Let's get systematic and let's talk about the football. We will start, Shaughan, by going to the Championship and looking at the top of the table clash at Starks Park between Raith Rovers and St Johnstone. And it was a clash that the Sainties emerged from with all 3 points. Adama Sidini opened the scoring after 29 minutes, and Josh McPake put the tin lid on things late on with his side second. St Johnstone's outstanding season continues. They're in first place with 13 points, and the Rovers, meanwhile, sit 3 points and one league position behind them, albeit having played a game more. I've watched the highlights for this. Looked like a really entertaining game that could have gone either way. Shaughan, you were there for this one. Talk to me about Raith Rovers 0, St Johnstone 2.
I did think there was too much between the teams on the day, but regardless, I thought St Johnstone warranted the win. There was probably some things that if Raith Rovers had done differently, or maybe if Barry Robson had done earlier in the game, then maybe they could have taken something from the game. But regardless, like, as much as Raith done okay, as they generally do most weeks, I think normally Raith Rovers are about a 6 out of 10 every single week this season. Hard to kind of criticise them, hard to generally praise them, I suppose. But I thought, watching St Johnstone, bearing in mind they had a few players that were missing, I thought looking at this game, I did really do believe that I was watching the team that would probably win the league, and a team that would probably challenge for top 4. I thought there was I maybe had my hopes up, I suppose, going into this game, but there was probably a wee bit of a realisation, I suppose, at full time.
Barry Robson, in his post-match interview, was certainly getting a bit of heat from St Johnstone supporters for perhaps not giving them the credit they felt they deserved. I think he thought it was a pretty even game. He was actually quite happy with Raith Rovers' performance, and it all just came down to moments that St Johnstone were able to score from, the chances they had, and Raith Rovers didn't.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest fan of Barry Robson in general, but I didn't necessarily disagree with a lot of what he said. However, I'll start with what I did disagree with. When he said, we didn't deserve to lose that, and I think everybody would agree with that. Now, I don't agree with that, and I think most people that watched it would say similar. However, that aside, when he talked about the fact that St Johnstone have a really good squad, he talked about the fact that in terms of the 2 goals, which I thought were dreadful from a Raith perspective, but he talked about the fact that it was, in terms of the difference between the 2 teams, was the fact that Raith made 2 really poor errors in the middle of the park, and St Johnstone, because they are such a good side, were able to, I suppose, take advantage of that, and on both occasions score 2 goals. Now, you might get away with that against Morton or Dunfermline or Airdrie or whatever. You don't get away with that when you're playing St Johnstone. So, as much as, yes, I didn't agree with them in terms of Raith didn't deserve to lose, but other than that, I thought Robson was pretty much bang on the money in terms of his description of the game, I suppose.
Yeah, I wondered why St Johnstone fans, certainly the ones on social media, maybe the ones on the message boards, were a bit unhappy about Robson's comments, and I suppose that
goes back to the first game. It goes back to a League Cup game.
Yeah, that's right. Well, remind us what he said in the aftermath of that.
I suppose it was similar. So again, I thought...
Sorry, that match finished 3-1 as well to St Johnstone.
3-1 St Johnstone. And again, I was a wee bit embarrassed by Barry Robson after that game, because again, Raith deserved to lose. Yes, they could have had a penalty. You could question the referee about certain decisions that he made, but ultimately St Johnstone were worthy winners. But Barry Robson didn't come out afterwards and say that St Johnstone were worthy winners. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was slightly embarrassing. But he certainly blamed the referee, and even 2 or 3 weeks later, he was still bringing it up, which is slightly embarrassing. So I think that is very much at the kind of back of St Johnstone fans' heads when they discuss Barry Robson.
I just thought it's a team that haven't won for a very, very long time that have suddenly started to be good and just want patted on the head all the time. That was my interpretation from it. I actually completely forgotten that the sides had met earlier in the season. But we spoke about the 2 goals. And we spoke about how both goals were bad errors from a Raith Rovers perspective. So we can talk about the goals now. I think that's a good opportunity to do it. The first one, Shaughan Byrne, who's quite a consummate player, just seems to slow down in the middle of the park. And you really can't do that, especially when you're up against guys like Sprangler and Rhys McAleer. And so it proved that half a second that he dawdles in the ball is costly. Rhys McAleer plays a really nice pass through to Adama Sidibe, not helped by the fact that Paul Hanlon almost slide tackles Callum Fordyce, and Sidibe's got a run through on Josh Ray and puts it through his legs.
Yeah, I suppose that probably sums up the game. So, Byrne wants far too long to make up his mind as to what he wants to do, which kind of sums up the Rovers, I think, in general. But regardless, it's still like really good for Rhys McAleer. Like McAleer absolutely snaps into him. Like what he does is really good. Wins the ball off Byrne, plays the ball through to Sidibe. Yes, I've no idea where Paul Harlan's off to. Regardless, I don't think he would have caught him.
Yeah.
And in terms of Fordyce kind of slide in, again, probably doesn't make any difference. But Sidibe, really cool finish, which like he was a pest and a handful for the Rovers defence all day, to be honest. I was really impressed by him.
And the second goal as well, this is late on in the game, and by this point, I think going by Robson's post-match interview, it effectively put like a 4-2-4, just put on all his attacking players in a bid to try and dig out a point from the match. It's a poor kick out from Josh Ray. And then Ross Matthews is quite slow to react to Sven Sprangler run towards him, misses a tackle, and it's probably just as well that Sprangler was able to pass it to Josh McPake to score, because Josh Ray wiped him out, and McPake's able to pass into empty net. Could have been a red card there. But yeah, it just seemed like a couple of errors in there, maybe if I've been a bit harsh on Matthews.
I thought Matthews was really poor here. So in terms of Josh Ray, his kick out was poor. He tends to do that maybe 2 or 3 times a game. Fine. It kind of goes out almost chest height, but it kind of drops in front of Ross Matthews, and then he kind of retreats. I don't really understand what is going through his head. It's his ball. He has to go towards it, but instead he kind of backs off, and then by that point, I think it's Sprangler kind of dances past him, and then it's too late by that point. I do think Ray is actually a wee bit lucky, because he, as we know he does, because we've spoken about him plenty of times during these, albeit he's still young, like he came charging out. He absolutely halved him, and then probably luckily for him, the ball breaks the McPake and he kind of rolls it into the empty net. But if that hadn't been the case, I mean, the referee still could have brought it back. But I think if McPake hadn't been there, then I think it would have been a red card for Ray, and then he would have been suspended for a couple of games. But regardless, maybe 2-0 was a wee bit harsh, but a win for St Johnstone was probably about right over the piece. Oh, you've went silent.
Apologies, sorry about that. I put my microphone on mute there for a second there. Sorry about that. What I was going to say was, if Josh McPake had been sensible, he wouldn't have scored and just stopped playing, got Ray sent off, and then they could have just taken the ball into the corner, and that means you weaken a direct opposition by taking away their first choice goalkeeper, and then you still get the 3 points. But
then maybe Raith Rovers would have equalised in the last, 2 or 3 minutes of injury time.
Perhaps, but I think that McPake might look back in that moment of selfishness and come to regret it. I mean, going by the highlights, it looked like there were a number of strong performances from St Johnstone, and one player that I'd like to highlight, and I mean, not that I watch him regularly, but when I watched him on the BBC Scotland when they played Ross County, anytime I've seen the highlights, this guy looks an absolutely unbelievable find, and that's the centre-back, Cheek Diabate. He looks like an absolute unit, but someone that can play a bit as well. And I think the slide tackle that he made on Paul McMullen, just as he's about to pull the trigger, that was like a goal-saving challenge. What do you make of his performance when you saw him?
Yeah, he looks like a unit. B, he like positionally, that feels like he knows where he needs to be. And as you say, in terms of that kind of block, kind of just charging in when he was slightly out of position, he was excellent. He was I thought he was one of St Johnstone's better players on the day.
What about then the midfield? Sprangler, he assists for the goal, looked quite lively. Josh McPake scored again, looked like a bit of a pain in the backside for the Rovers. What about the other St Johnstone players that caught the eye?
I thought Holt, Holt barely done anything wrong. Anytime he was in possession, generally gave it to another St Johnstone player. Always seemed to be exactly where Raith Rovers didn't want him to be, and it was interesting. I think at full time I was like, right, that's really disappointing, because Barry Robson does like to play direct, and it felt like we were very, very direct on Saturday. However, I actually think maybe thinking about it on the kind of Saturday night and Sunday, yes, part of that is that's how Barry Robson wants to play. However, I also think that in terms of like Jason Holt and Rhys McAleer and I think it's Fedberg, in terms of middle of the park, they were just far, far better than Ross Matthews, Scott Brown and Sean Byrne. So to a degree, I think anytime Raith were in possession, they felt like they had to go long. So maybe I was a wee bit dismissive of Barry Robson, or a wee bit critical, when actually it was just that St Johnstone didn't give them a minute's peace on the ball, so they had to go long. So no, I thought they were. I was very, very impressed, and difficult to see who can remain on their coattails even at this like early point of the season.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there you go. You go to Raith Rovers, and yeah, you might have been right in terms of a couple of mistakes that ultimately swung the game in their favour. But nevertheless, you go away to Raith Rovers and you win 2-0. You go up to Ross County, and this was the second game of the season before we really appreciated the scale that on Tony Docherty's hands. But you go up there and you win 1-0. You go to you beat Arbroath 3-0. You're just turning over teams like quite easily, and even you might have struggled to break down Greenock Morton, but nevertheless that's unbeaten over the course of the season. And dropped 2 points so far in the league campaign. It just seems to be that there's the place seems reinvigorated, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't know if it's by dropping down a level has done that, where you're playing against maybe a lower calibre of opposition, and if you've got good players and good manager, then you win more games. That's obvious. But just in terms of no VAR, there's less hassle with the games you're going to, because it's generally smaller crowds. I think if you're a St Johnstone fan, maybe taking all these factors in, and yeah, of course, you want to see your team perform at the highest level, and no one ever wants to see their side relegated. I'm always dismissive of, when people say, oh, you get relegated, it allows you to rebuild and kick on again. I think that's a bit of a fallacy, but in this instance, it actually might be true with St Johnstone. If you think of like the negativity that they've had to endure since winning that cup double, the failure to build in it, and it just felt like they were circling the drain for the past couple of seasons. It does feel like there's a vibrancy around the place at the moment, and still a long way to go. They've still got 31 games to play. Very difficult though to see anyone else challenging, because then if you do think about who's challenging, where is that challenge going to come from? Ross County now look as though they've got a job in their hands to make the top four. Never mind challenge for the title. Rovers probably aren't at that stage yet. Thistle aren't at that stage yet. Ayr United still got a bit of work to do. So when you look at who's actually directly challenging them, it's really difficult to pick anyone out.
Yeah, totally. And I think they have, I think in terms of how Simo Valakari has approached building a squad, it feels like they have strength and depth that nobody else has. If a right back drops out, then for example, Forrester was in there on Saturday, but Regan Tumilty can come in. Regan Tumilty would get a game for Raith Rovers, no problem at all. Sam Stanton has barely played this season. Sam Stanton can get a game for most teams in the championship. There is a strength and depth, and it feels like Valakari knew what he was doing when he was bringing these players in, which maybe in terms of Ross County, maybe they brought in names rather than an idea, if that makes sense.
That's actually a good point, because remember the time, we go back to this a lot, but when you sign Jack Baird and Morgan Boyce, you think, really, are these the guys that are going to get you into the Premiership? Maybe it's a case of signing guys that have got a bit of fire in their belly. Maybe with County signing guys like Declan Gallagher and Ross Docherty and so on, guys that just don't have much of a point to prove anymore. They're just hardy professionals. This is probably as good as it's going to get for them. It's one, the guys who are the wrong side of 30, one last relatively big contract for them. Whereas with Boys and Baird, it's a chance to win a league title. Something I need to check. I'm sure. I think Baird might have won a league title at St Mirren. I need to go back and check. There might be someone listening to this that's saying, no, he didn't, you fucking clown. But he might have done. He might have done. But, it's a chance to do something different. So it's smart like that. I think it's you're not just signing the name, you've got to look at the personality. And, yeah, and on top of that as well, those guys that we signed, imagine they wouldn't have been on big wages either. So you sign decent players for the squad that have got a bit of fire in their belly, and then you can spend that money elsewhere on signing like the better players. Like a guy like Stevie Mallon, for instance. I know he's out injured at the moment, but I imagine he's on a decent wage.
See just on the, like, see when they got the second goal, so that was like the 88th minute or whatever. Like McPake slides it in. He's in front of the St Johnstone fans.
Brilliant,
and obviously I'm facing it. So Johnstone fans are going absolutely mental. The players kind of go towards the fans, and you're like, I suspect that St Johnstone are going to have an absolutely brilliant, like in terms of if you're a St Johnstone fan, I suspect you're going to have an absolutely brilliant campaign this season. It just felt like we've talked about it before in terms of maybe, I don't know, Falkirk winning League One or Dunfermline winning League One, where there's some kind of synchronicity between the team and the fans, and it kind of felt like, I know we're only 5 games in, it kind of felt like there was a bit of that on Saturday between the St Johnstone team and the supporters.
The clips where the supporters are running down the steps just to celebrate like yards away from him. I mean, ideally you want McPake to go over and cuddle them, but the fact that they're just running down just to get close enough just to celebrate him, that's great. And that's ultimately what we want to see, and that's ultimately what from being a football supporter. You want to be invigorated by going to the club. Because I wonder, see if that was the St Johnstone team of last season, would they have taken the same numbers to Starks Park? I don't know, maybe not. But the fact is that I know it's as you think you should always follow your club, and that it doesn't quite work like that. If your club's shite, you can maybe think skip a game, like you're away from home and you just say, away at the Rovers, I'll probably give that one a miss. Might go to the garden centre, might go to the cinema, might take the kids out. And
then bear in mind as well, there was no trains between Perth and Kirkcaldy, so it was a bus replacement service. So that must have put some people off. But no, I thought the turnout was really good.
Yeah, and Valakari as well in his post-match interview, he thought the fans were unbelievable and quite right for it, quite right for him. But the Rovers, we not to dwell too much on Raith Rovers because we did speak about them at length on last week's show after the 1-0 win over Greenock Morton. I did read a post that you put up in Pie and Bovril, and it seemed to be similar frustrations that you had from that Morton game were realised again now, and it seems to spring really from the decision to play Paul McMullen as the principal centre forward.
I don't really get it. I don't really get it, and it certainly didn't work on Saturday. To be fair, that there was a change of formation. The fact that Josh Mullen was suspended meant that Doherty went to right back and he went to a back 4, and so there was kind of a front 2. So it was Vaughan and McMullen were up front. But again, it was just, in fairness, I did say that St Johnstone done a really good job of I suppose, chasing them down. So it was very much playing it long. That's not Paul McMullen's game or Lewis Vaughan. As soon as Jack Hamilton came on, so we were like about the kind of 60th minute, at that point, the ball started to stick, and suddenly Raith were able to kind of play in the kind of final third of St Johnstone's. Ultimately able to play in the final third, but I'm still not entirely sure if Barry Robson will abandon it, because we're now in a situation where the best, I would say, in terms of when Raith have been at their best, it was second half against Dunfermline when they changed the shape. Against Partick Thistle when they went 2-0 down, so had to change the shape. And then probably against St Johnstone when they changed the shape. I don't think Barry Robson wants to deviate from this. Paul McMullen up front. I think they would have to lose to the greatest one in the world, lose to Airdrie or lose to Arbroath, which is the next 2 games.
Yeah.
So I don't think there'll be any changes unless, but if they do lose either of those games, then maybe Barry Robson will think, right, I might need to think of a plan B. But as much as a third in the table, I still think it is in spite of Barry Robson's tactics rather than because of it.
He did miss some decent chances. There was a chance that Lewis Vaughan had a good effort and mucked up, and Easton was off balance when trying to shoot it at one point. I was quite disappointed with Vaughan's effort. I think everyone knows he should have done better there.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think there is and I'm the same. I think there is a tendency to say, oh, Lewis Vaughan didn't have a good game. It's probably because of his injuries. But ultimately, yes, I mean, it might have been. But just he's had injuries, but he can also... His form can go up and down. His confidence can go up and down. So hopefully he can kind of get back on board and become the striker that we know he can be. Because I don't think it's necessarily because of his injuries. He had such a poor game on Saturday.
I would love to have seen Barry Robson if he could get his hands on John Fredrickson. That's a really exciting prospect that we'll never, ever, ever get to know how it could have worked out, because I think Fredrickson would thrive in this team.
I mean, I still think that's available. If you would just suggest that to him, I don't think it's unachievable.
Excellent. Well, there, Barry Robson, if you're listening, and I'm sure you've got space in your podcast app behind the High Achievement podcast. There you go. Look up John Fredrickson. He's available. He's got his boots. He wants to play. You mentioned, Shaughan, the next game for the Raith Rovers. They are away at Airdrieonians. You should be looking to get 3 points for this one.
Oh, yes. But I thought that Airdrie had a wee bit more about them last Friday against Partick Thistle. I didn't think they had much more about them going forward, certainly. But Thistle struggled to break them down. I don't think this will be a classic at all. I'll go for a 1-0 win for Raith.
Meanwhile, St Johnstone are taking on Dunfermline Athletic. It's live on the BBC Scotland channel on Friday night. An absolute humdinger of a match in store, given that the Pars absolutely turned over Arbroath 5-0 at the weekend, with Andy Todd getting a really good hat-trick.
Pars looked excellent against Arbroath at the weekend. I'll still go for a home win, but I think this could be a really good game. I'll go for a lot of goals. I'll go for 3-2 St Johnstone. I
am going to go for 1-0. 1-0 to St Johnstone. I'm intrigued. I'll be really intrigued to watch this game. I've seen enough of St Johnstone, but I really want to get a look at Dunfermline and see what they're like now that these wildcard signings that Neil Lennon's made, how they have embedded themselves into the team. I really want to see Andy Todd and John Todd play together, because I think it's class. Like brothers setting goals up for each other. It's brilliant. It's like something you read in Oor Willie. That was my favourite Oor Willie story, actually. I don't know if anyone listening has ever read this strip, but it's Oor Willie's recruiting a football team together, and he signs so many players that there's no actually any space for him to play in the team. And I think he actually signs brothers. He might do. He might do. I need to double check that. I won't double check it.
I've not read that. Oor Willie, sorry.
It's a good one. There's one. He recruits a goalkeeper. They're playing jumpers for goalposts, and he deliberately he picks up the jumpers and moves them far away, so the goalkeeper thinks he's got his angles covered, but it goes in because the goals have changed, and the goalkeeper gets sacked, and Oor Willie signs him.
I like the fact that for like about 30 years there was a kind of recurring theme in the Bruins where Grandpa, there was a suggestion that like his pipes had burst, and it would normally be like his smoking pipe, or his like the bagpipes. And so eventually, after like about 30 years, they were like, oh well, there's no point in rushing into this. It'll be his bagpipes or it'll be his smoking pipe. And then they all eventually kind of sauntered over at the end of the strip, and it turned out that his pipes were absolutely burst, and he was absolutely bad mouthing them. For the fact that it took him so long to reach his flat.
Yeah, that's how these things usually start. Like the Bairns heard that Grandpa's pipes have burst, and no one believes him, but he's actually got a shadow in his lung or something like that, and he can't breathe properly.
No, it's just his pipes have burst.
Yeah, from what I remember, the Bruins never suffered any serious health issues. Like they had to go and visit.
No, I mean, let's face it, you don't want that in the kind of cartoon pages of the Sunday Post.
I mean, I thought it was supposed to reflect real life. I quite like the idea of Paul Broon making a will and having to plan for life after Ma Broon passes away, and how the Broon estate is going to be divvied up amongst the children.
No, I don't think you want that in the kind of happy pages of the Sunday Post.
Somebody like Hen Broon starts going with a woman who's a bit of a Lady Macbeth character and turns Hen against his family, and so he wants more of the inheritance. These are ideas, because I'm sure that the Broons have done every single conceivable angle possible Just trying to bring some new ideas to the table. Like one of the twins has been arrested for taking a knife to school. You know, something along those lines.
None of them have a name.
No,
there's several children don't have a name in that family, and that's an issue.
Horace Brune is struck by a hit and run driver, something along those lines.
Horace was he was a weirdo, wasn't he?
Do you think there's anyone in Scotland been born in the last 30 years with the name Horace?
No.
I can't imagine that either. If you are under the age of 30 and go by the name Horace, do get in touch with myself and Shaughan. We'd be delighted to have you on this podcast. But we'll head into League One, Shaughan, and we'll head to the northeast of the country where Peterhead and Hamilton Academical played out an entertaining 2-2 draw. Craig McGuffey opened the scoring for the Blue Toon, but it was cancelled out just before the interval by Ollie Shaw. And although Cammy Smith put the home side back in front, a lovely goal by Stuart McKinstry right at the death got them maybe an undeserved share of the spoils. Peterhead is still getting to grips with League One. They're in 7th place with 7 points. Hamilton, meanwhile, they're in 6th with 8 points. Shaughan, let's have a 9-minute chat about Peterhead 2, Hamilton Academical 2.
I thought Peterhead looked really good here, and I thought they probably over the piece. They would have warranted the kind of 3 points, if not for the admittedly really good goal from Hamilton and whatever it was the last minute. It was interesting in terms of Cammy Smith was interviewed afterwards, and I suppose I maybe thought it as well in terms of it's Peterhead, a part-time team, against Hamilton, a full-time team who you probably expect to certainly challenge for the league before this division started. And I think the Peterhead interviewer said, Well, you must have been like before the game started. You would have took a point, or you would have taken a point. And Cammy was like, no, maybe you would think that, but certainly as a group of players, we didn't come here expecting a point, and we wouldn't have taken a point, and we're actually really disappointed that we've ended up taking a point. And I thought that was quite interesting. And over in terms of the highlights, like Peterhead, like looked like the better team over the course of the game.
I'd agree with that. I thought that Peterhead, what I've got down in my notes here, I thought my main take was their approach play at times was absolutely superb. Absolutely superb. I think there was a chance for Max Barry, and he plays like a back heel into Cammy Smith, and Cammy Smith cuts the ball back to him at the penalty spot, but he shoots past the post. And you think if that goal had gone in, that's just a lovely goal. A lot of the one-touch, two-touch football to carry the ball from midfield into the final third was really, really impressive. What let them down, though, was just their finishing in some cases. And like we're using that example from Barry, there are other ones as well where the ball would get worked into good areas and they would take an extra touch and the Hamilton defence would be able to get out and clear them, or just a bit wayward with their finishing. And ultimately, that's what cost them the game, because the winning goal, what am I trying to say here? The winning goal, basically, Hamilton didn't offer very much. I think they had a couple of chances in the first half, but when you look at that second half, going by the highlights, it looked like it was mostly played out on Peterhead's terms. Really nice goal from Smith to put them ahead. But the big difference is, if you've got a player of Stuart McKinstry's quality, when things aren't going for you, he's the guy that can take that moment of magic. And same with the winning goal, the equalising goal there. It's a lovely wee touch from Ollie Shaw to play the ball into McKinstry. And I think the Peterhead defence is just a fraction of a second, just a bit slow coming out to him. And that just allows McKinstry to look up. And I think he uses those players as a marker and is just able to bend the ball around them, and it hits off the inside of the post and goes in. So I can completely understand why Smith's disappointed. One, that they didn't win the match, but it's because they didn't take the chances within the top. And two, and it's not Peterhead's fault, but there's a player on the pitch with the quality of Stuart McKinstry who can make something out of nothing.
It's funny though, because I do think that Peterhead are right to be A, disappointed, but B, kind of happy in terms of how they performed against a full-time team. But even though they equalised kind of late in the day, I thought Hamilton were poor. I don't think Hamilton could take too many positives from this performance or this result. I thought they looked second best for the bulk of the game.
I think so. I suppose going up to Peterhead and taking a point, it feeds into stuff we were talking about last week about some of the more remote grounds in the country from the Central Belt. Elgin, Stranraer, Peterhead, Annan maybe to an extent. But when you go to these places, if you're a central-based team, you go to these places, it's a long day. And I think if you've got something to come back with, you should be satisfied about it. So maybe in that regard, and the fact that it was late on, maybe shows the team have got a bit of fight in their belly. You look at these things. So I think that may be a positive for John Rankin. But other than that, no, I think that they were, on the whole, quite lucky to have taken that point just because Peterhead didn't take their chances. And I suppose that for Peterhead, it was just that just not scoring when you're on top, not scoring enough goals, because 2-1's a pretty tricky lead. You're not going to hold on to that. And I think that's where the frustration will come from. And on top of that as well, to go back to Cammy Smith's point, just because if Hamilton are a full-time team, I don't think they're a team that you should really be scared of. It's like Cove Rangers. They're a full-time team. Are you scared of Cove Rangers? I'm not scared of Cove Rangers. Hamilton have got some good players in that starting 11, but once you take like one player out and they're only able to make one change off the bench, once you go past that, there's really not a lot there at all. So Hamilton, not compared to Cali Thistle, not compared to Queen of the South, a team to be scared of.
I mean, you're right. I mean, like Darian McKinnon was on the bench for Hamilton. I think the only sub they brought on was Bobby McCluckey. So you're right. It's like they probably have a starting 11 that should really be up there challenging, if not winning, that division. But after that, goodness me, it's wafer thin. And I thought Saturday was a good illustration of the issues that they have.
Yeah, I mean, I watched John Rankin's post-match interview and was looking at John Rankin. Might just be me thinking this. He looks a wee bit like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., like a sort of younger, better-looking version of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Do you see what I mean?
I know what you mean.
I mean, he was like, just for the points I've touched on there, pleased with the character of his players to dig out the point. He was unhappy with the first Peterhead goal. He says that he thinks he should have been awarded a free kick. I think Max Barry falls on top of the ball and he's got his arm on it before it breaks out to Craig McGuffey.
I've watched that a few times. I didn't think it was a free kick.
One of the things he said, he thought his team felt aggravated. Did you notice that in his post-match interview? Did you notice it?
I don't know what it means.
I think he meant aggravated. I think he's talking, my team felt aggravated that wasn't given. My team felt aggravated that was given. I'm sure that's what he's going for. It just ties in with like Dougie Imrie not pronouncing tenacity. So there we go. I think we should keep a wee counter of this, like managers saying words incorrectly. There we've got, what was the word? Was it
tenacity?
Tenacity. Tenacity and aggravated. There you go. There's two words there that we can use. But yeah, I suppose that it's the worry there for the worry there for Rankin. It's you're asking the same players over and over again to play, and that's good if you've got a bunch of guys that you can trust. But even so, that can only stretch so far. Like if somebody's not in good form or you get an injury. I mean, there's McCluckey, the only player that comes off the bench. You mentioned like McKinnon being one of the other outfield players who would have to go in as a trialist at the moment, and then two young guys who aren't quite ready for it. So that's the worry. That's what if you can't go up to, with no disrespect, if you can't go up to Peterhead and have the players to change it, then how are you expecting to take on like maybe the better, like Cali Thistle or Queen of the South or like Stennismuir, for instance, who are leading the table at the moment? How are you expecting to take on them with things that you can change it when it's not going in your favour? And I think that's an example. This game was an example of that. It's just that they had a player as good as McKinstry who can score a really good goal to dig them out of it.
Yeah, and you wonder actually, like, because like obviously Hamilton, like we know off the park they're a shambles, but now on the park they've really started to fall away. But you're wondering if they're kind of low numbers in terms of the squad is hampering them. So maybe Lee Kildee has a knock. Maybe Ollie Shaw isn't at 100%. Maybe Kevin O'Hara isn't at 100%. But none of these players, like, they can't really come off. There's nobody to replace them. So maybe these players are are kind of pushing through when ideally they wouldn't. I don't know, but like, I know we talked about this at the start of the season. We knew Hamilton would have issues off the park. I'm not entirely sure I realised they would have so many issues on the park as well.
I think so. I think you're right. I think it's just as Rankin said, though, it's just he was talking about the difficulties. He was talking about whether or not to play Bobby McCluskey or whether or not to play Stuart McKinstry. He was talking about having them as an alternative. He was just saying, though, when he was discussing that, he said it's like the players just know what the situation is with the low numbers and with the injuries and with the transfer embargo. He says they don't complain, they just get on with it. And that's what you have to do in this situation. You have to be professional, you have to keep on grafting, and you just have to give your best for the club and for the teammates. And that's the job that Rankin and his coaching staff have in his hands, just to try to keep the place as harmonious and as together as possible in difficult circumstances. I thought with Peterhead here, what I was impressed about, one of the guys that really stood out here, and I think he was quite involved with a lot of the highlights, is Adam Carnworth, who has started playing games at right fullback. I think Danny Strachan is out injured at the moment, but certainly based on this performance, and certainly, I mean, Carnworth's I think he's a forward / attacking midfielder who's been drafted in at right back at the moment. Some of his runs, though, wow, very, very eye-catching stuff.
There was a point where he probably picked up the ball in the right back position and then just started to run. But then, like, nobody could really take the ball off him. Like, he must have went 60, 70 yards. And bear in mind, that's in a kind of 8-9 minute highlights package. But Jordan Brown certainly highlighted him post-match. But I thought he looked excellent. And yes, he's came in, isn't a right back, is essentially filled in and seems to be doing it exceptionally well.
And sticking with Jordan Brown's post-match interview, just a word for the future, like an 8-minute post-match interview. There's only one manager I want to hear in an 8-minute post-match interview, and that is Grinning Pete being asked the same question, but just slightly different versions of it. He's the only person I want to see an 8-minute post-match interview from. No one else.
I tell you what, I would say Grinning Pete, I'm presuming you've watched him. He was not grinning at all. He was just Pete.
Yes,
he was grinning Pete.
After very good. After losing 2-1 to East Fife. Yes, I didn't watch the highlights for the East Fife game because I knew we weren't covering it. You better believe I watched the post-match interview though. He was raging. He was raging. One of the things as well about this game, Shaughan, is I don't know if you noticed it, but when the full-time whistle it goes, you get the beep beep beep. Fuck coming from someone in the crowd.
I don't think I noticed that.
No, I noticed
it. Watch it.
Go back and watch it. It's really funny, and I think that fan, that lone fuck in the crowd there, really just really summed up the frustration of this game, because I think that Cammy Smith touched on it, Jordan Brown touched on it as well. Just disappointed they didn't take the 3 points from the game. But I would say for Peterhead, I'd say conversely for Hamilton, well, you'd be a bit concerned just about the numbers and the fact that they were effectively holding on against like a mid-card League One side, newly promoted League One side as well. Peterhead have got a lot of options there to choose from. You know, big squad, and when you go and look through the subs bench, there's all guys there that can come on and make a difference. On Monday night, I was on the Blue Tomb podcast with Colin Byers. It was good fun, basically because Peterhead are travelling to Oakville to play Stennismuir at the weekend. So we were on just talking about the season so far and previewing that game coming up. And off air, we were talking about the cooperation agreement. And Colin was asking my thoughts for it. And I said, well, you know, it's worked out well for Stenny, the boy we've got in, just one player that we've got from Motherwell, but he's playing every week and he's making a contribution. And I think he'll be in the team for the foreseeable future. And we're talking about Peterhead going for a cooperation agreement. And I think the consensus is that they don't need it because they've got their own young players that are coming through that they can turn to. They've got good players, good experienced players in that squad that can help these young players coming through. We need guys like Paulett and Cammy Smith, and the boys will be able to bring in like Aaron Steele, for instance. They'll be able to bring him from Arbroath, and that was another player that Jordan Brown stuck up for. So I think that Peterhead are in a good place to go forward. I think even maybe an outside shout to get into that top four.
Yeah, they are. I suppose the thing I was thinking about was they are in a division that has Hamilton is a full-time team. Cove is a full-time team, albeit I think we're both in agreement that Cove aren't very good. Queen of the South. Right, so there's full-time teams there. But then you have part-time teams like Stennismuir, who seem to be just everything they do, like everything they do seems to go really, really well. I think East Fife seem to be doing really, really well this season. So it feels like, maybe in terms of quality, League One isn't great, but in terms of decent teams that would maybe expect to be at least try to stay up, I think you need to be doing quite well in League One this season to finish in the top four, certainly. So I know what you're saying. I know where you're coming from. I think Peterhead are okay. I still think it'd be quite difficult to finish top four.
The way I see the division, I can see Cally, Thistle and Queen of the South finishing first and second. Cally, Thistle to win it, Queen's to finish in second place, and I think there'll be a number of teams, the part-time teams. I don't think it'll be Cove Rangers. Hamilton will obviously fancy their chances, but as we seem to say every single time we talk about Hamilton, something bad's coming down the tracks. So I think that's going to hamstring them. But then Alloa, Stennismuir, East Fife, Peterhead, why not? Can you not get those top spaces with a bit of luck? You know, the fact that they go to that game and they're just kicking themselves that they didn't win. I think that says what the expectations are from this squad and from this group of players, that they should be beating Hamilton Accies. So I think that's a good indicator as to where the club are at the moment. But next,
I agreed. But I still think they'll probably be bottom half and then top half.
I think so as well. I think that's where they'll finish. I think that everyone at the club will think differently. But they are playing Stennismuir on Saturday. Stennismuir, of course, the league leaders at the moment. Peterhead yet to win away from home at all this season, and the sides have met earlier on in the League Cup campaign, and that's when Stenny basically had to play the Magnificent Seven to see them through this match.
I am again astonished at how well Stennismuir have started the season. It would be foolish of me to say anything else. I will go for a home win. I
think I fancy a home win as well for this one. Stenny away at Kelty on Saturday. I wasn't at this match. We'll find out why very shortly. But by all accounts, Stenny were really good in this game and had the chances to wrap it up. Could have been 1-0, probably flatters Kelty, who, well, I hope we get a chance to talk about them soon because I think they're in a bit of bother.
Yep.
But Stenny are in a good place at the moment. I think that do you remember that injury crisis? I think the club played an absolute blinder by just getting that gang of players just to see them through the group stages, not going out and sign players for the sake of signing them, waiting for the right players to become available, because the team are in a good place. And I think it says a lot about where Stennismuir are at the moment that Michael Anderson can't get into the starting 11. But
surely when I know he's missed because of injury, but surely when he comes back,
he's back fit. He's fully fit. He can't get in the team at the moment because Scott McGill, Finn Robson, and Ollie White, the boy who's on loan from Motherwell's part of the cooperation agreement, they're in such good form at the moment that he can't get in ahead of him. So it says a lot, because everyone knows, they listen to this regularly, will know how I feel about Michael Anderson. And then there's Finlay Gray. He's not far back from coming back from action. So it feels like Stennismuir are doing all right. Stennismuir are doing all right at the moment. I would expect them to get the better of Peterhead. But conversely, who Stenny were playing at the weekend there, Kelty Hearts versus Hamilton Academical.
As poor as Hamilton have been, I still fancy them to take all 3 points at Kelty.
Yeah, and Tam Ware, if you're listening, please stop trying to play your goal kicks out from the back.
Does it work?
It doesn't work,
does it? Didn't work at East Fife when I watched it.
It doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, those 14-year-old centre backs that you've got, they can't do it. I think that it's the sort of thing when teams see the goal kick and see the two centre backs inside the 6-yard box, right, everyone take 15-yard steps that way, in that direction. Hopeless. But Shaughan, before
just have a plan B. Just have a plan B, Tam.
Sign John Fredrickson and kick the ball long. Easy as that. Listen, but you better move in fast, because here Barry Robson's interested in signing him. Shaughan, before we move on to League 2, we really have to stop in and look at Inverness Caledonian Thistle. On Tuesday, their manager Scott Kellacher was interviewed by BBC Sports Scotland, and he said he has used Miley Cyrus's 2009 hit single The Climb to inspire his team over the past 10 months. Last week, Cali at Thistle exited administration. They've continued to impress on the pitch, winning 5 of their 6 matches so far this season, and Kellacher credits the pop country ballad about never giving up with their success. He said, "I just listened to the words and how they sort of fitted into what the club is all about and what we are trying to do. I played it to the boys one day in the dressing room before a game and it went down really well. I was really pleased because they understood the meaning of the song and we just used that as our song going forward. That's what we are trying to do. Climb up the table, trying to get back where we should be." Now, he said there, the key line there, "I'm pleased because the players understood the meaning of the song," right? I'm going to read you out the lyrics for the chorus. "There's always going to be another mountain. I'm always going to want to make it move. Always going to be an uphill battle. Sometimes you're going to have to lose. Ain't about how fast I get there. Ain't about what's waiting on the other side. It's the climb."
And in fairness, a lot of that makes sense when they were maybe just about to go into administration. It makes less sense maybe now.
I mean, it makes sense, but it's like, the players understood it. It's probably the easiest song to try and interpret in the world. It's all just about, there's going to be obstacles in your way, but if you overcome them, you'll have success. It's not like the Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. It's not that. I don't think that the Climb by Miley Cyrus is going to be taught as part of an English literature undergraduate degree.
This feels like Scott Kellacher was trying to come up with a topic to impart onto his players, but maybe it wasn't quite as deep as he thought it was.
I quite like the idea, like Scott Kellacher, he tried to bring in The Art of War by Sun Tzu into the Cali Thistle change room. It didn't work. He just stuck Miley Cyrus on instead. Went over so much better. Just like the idea of like telling Joe Chalmers, if you want peace, you must prepare for war. And Joe Chalmers just look at him, what? Mind blown. Plays on a song from Hannah Montana. Gaffer, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. Now, our final match is the game that everyone has been looking forward to, the contest that every football fan marked down in their calendar as a must attend, a culture clash of the haves versus the have-nots, a thrilling encounter between two teams from different sides of the tracks, and a match that ended all square. We are talking about Edinburgh City 2, East Kilbride 2 at Meadowbank. James Stokes opened the scoring for the home side early on, but it was quickly cancelled out by John Robertson's penalty. That's what Cammy Russell netted. Cammy Elliott netted from close range to put Kilby ahead, but Jason Jarvis's deflected effort at the start of the second half ultimately tied the contest. The Citizens are still at the foot of the table. They're chipping away at their points deduction. They're now on -4, while East Kilbride have fallen from the top of the division into second place. They're on 13 points. Now, Shaughan, I patched Stennismuir's win at Kelty Hearts to attend this game. I thought it was simply too big a fixture to miss out on. So feel free to ask me anything you want about Edinburgh City 2, East Kilbride 2.
When I was getting score updates at Starks Park, so Edinburgh go 1-0 up and then East Kilbride go 2-1 up, I was like, right, well, that's it. East Kilbride will probably pull away here. However, that was not the case at all. It kind of looked like that. Like maybe 2-2 was roughly probably deserved, but if anybody was worthy of the win, it might have been Edinburgh, I suppose.
I think you're absolutely spot on. Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think that Edinburgh City will be disappointed not to have won it. I think particularly in the second half, they had a lot of chances that were either saved or poorly struck or well struck but just past the post. Whereas East Kilbride's 2 goals really came out of nowhere. The first is a penalty, and I've got to say I think Cammy Russell does well to win it. It's a long ball played into the box by Rhys Breen. Mark Weir's a wee bit slow in coming out it, and Cammy Elliott nips in, and you can see Cammy Elliott knows, I'm going to get thumped here. And he basically...
It's a weird penalty. It's a weird penalty.
He knows he's going to get hit, so he basically kind of jumps around and turns his back into Mark Weir because he knows he's going to get thumped. So he's anticipating the contact. So I think it is a penalty on hold because I think that Elliott was going to get like taken out there. John Robertson converts, and then East Kilbride have got a wee bit of the ball there, and all of a sudden Robertson has a shot from the edge of the box out of nowhere, hits the bar. Elliott controls and finishes it. And maybe like yourself, Shaughan, I was anticipating, I think East Kilbride can see this out. Wasn't the case at all. When Jarvis got City level, like City had the better of the chances. I can't even remember, Mark, we're having really anything to do in the second half. And I think that East Kilbride will be relieved to have got out of there with the point. And it's disappointing that we didn't get a post-match interview from Mick Kennedy, because I've really been keen to hear his thoughts on this game and how it went. But yeah, I think that Edinburgh City were the better side, not by much, but they were the better side here. And I think it's just testament to just how good they're going under Michael McIndoe at the moment.
And is there a case where like Edinburgh were the better team, but in terms of like East Kilbride's moments, there was like they probably have the better individuals, so there's better individual moments, I suppose, from East Kilbride. I don't know.
That's a good question. That's a good question, because it's a funny one. John Robertson, if you think of his contribution for the match, he scored the penalty and effectively assisted the second goal. You think, wow, what a contribution. He didn't really do anything outside of that. In fact, his most notable contribution was like just getting booked for slapping the ball away because he went in half and screaming at one of his teammates because he didn't get a pass on. I think he must be such a frustrating player to play alongside. I think he's great when things are going well, but if they're not, he can really have a bad attitude, and I think that might have a negative effect on players around him. I think you just need to say to him, listen, stop being a fanny. Stop being a fanny. Stop getting on at people. I thought the East Kilbride's best player, I thought, was Joel Baldy in the middle of the park. He had some really nice touches, really quite good to watch, good at making space for himself, but he didn't really do anything decisive, if you know what I mean. When we were leaving the ground, there was an East Kilbride fan. I was talking to Ali Moncrief, Edinburgh City supporters, appeared in this podcast a number of times alongside Craig Fowler when they're updating what the citizens' his seasons have been going. Talking to Alan out, and an East Kilbride fan turned to us and said, yeah, it was a good game, point was a fair result, but we really missed Jack Leach in the middle of the park. And thinking, you've got more than enough to compensate for Jack Leach not being there. I agree with that. I think that Jack Leach is, when East Kilbride wants somebody to drop deep to collect the ball, Jack Leach is really good at it because he can turn with the ball really quickly. He's good at knowing what's around him. And Lewis Spence was doing that, and a couple of times they were able to disrupt him. So maybe they did miss Leach, but I just think for a team that has been as assembled as it has, like East Kilbride, it shouldn't all fall apart if Jack Leach is missing.
But he didn't come on, did he? Like didn't come on. I don't think Jack Healy come on. And in terms of names, I appreciate I'm just mentioning names here, but like Regan Mimna was on the bench, and I know he was attempted to be sold on Instagram, but maybe he is coming back into the frame. I don't know, but there's still definitely a squad there.
Yeah, definitely. I think that what you saw though was, I'm not going to say that East Kilbride are badly coached or anything. There was a suggestion of that on the message boards that this was they were out coached here, but like Michael McIndoe, we know how good a coach he is. We know how good he and Kirk Crichton work well together. I beg your pardon, how well he and Kirk Crichton work together, and their tactics were absolutely spot on for this. It takes a lot. I think it takes a lot. I mean, you've seen Mike McIndoe's post-match. He compared the players' fitness to the English Championship. He said that he was telling the guys, you need to run for 100 minutes here, which I presume he's including like 5 minutes extra for added on at the end of each half, and he's completely forgotten the length of a game of football. But he was told the young guys, you need to run for 100 minutes. And East Kilbride are really good in the ball. They can move the ball really quickly. You know how they want to play. They want to get the ball in short and be able to get the fullbacks using the ball, and you can cut teams open really quickly by doing that. But at the same token, if you can disrupt that, then it can create dividends. And I think you've got the best pressing forward in the division in James Stokes, and you've got a guy who, if you say to him like, we want you to basically run from one corner flag to the next, backwards and forwards for 90 minutes, he'd probably do it if you told him to. And so to have him just like pressuring the fullback, I think there was triggers that any time, I think like David Ferguson got the ball, boom, get right on top of him. Anytime Freddie Owens is on the ball, the goalkeeper, push up and do it. And it worked. I think McIndoe said he wanted to turn the game into basketball. And I remember at the time, like when I was watching the match thinking, Christ, this is a bit of an ugly game. But in hindsight, I know what he means by it, because it was Edinburgh were going quite long a lot of the time to big Jack Duncan up front, and fair play to the big guy. He's not a striker, but he does put a shift in. And I think it was the headers that he wins or the headers that he doesn't win. It doesn't matter because we'll pick the second balls up. We're more aggressive than you. Like Bradley Barrett had a right good game as well. Actually, I think he's been a good pickup since he's coming for Bonnyrigg. And this Lawson's got that degree of aggression. Stokes, as we mentioned. Jarvis, good player in the middle of the park as well. And it was like, we will just basically turn this into this big, daft, whirling dervish the ball. You will not have control of this game. I think that was it to East Kilbride. I think the only time East Kilbride showed like a degree of control was like midway through the first half where they're able to like horseshoe them. I think they were trying to just drag Edinburgh out of position by incisive, wee quick passes. But other than that, I don't think there was much control in the game. And I think that's what Edinburgh wanted. And it worked, and I think, like I say, I think they'll be disappointed not to have taken all 3 points from this because they did have chances to do so.
I love the fact that Michael McIndoe said that he was praising the press, he was praising his players, and he went, by the way, we're all able to work on this from Wednesday. I was like, come on now, you must have had them pressing since before Wednesday of this week. But regardless, it was fair play to him.
What I think by that is though that he's had a chance to properly get a look at East Kilbride, and he's been able to sit down with the players and say to them, listen, this is what this player's going to do. So when he gets the ball, you need to do that. And I think it's like you're passing on quite a lot of instructions to part-time players, and it worked. And it did work. I mean, like you see, the 2 goals, one was a penalty that I thought it was a penalty. Other people might disagree with it. Yeah. And a goal that's from a shot that's out of nowhere. That a lot of players had stopped because they thought it was offside. Cammy Elliott didn't. He kept on playing and scored from it. But outside of that, East Kilbride chances, not many. And I think it was just at stages they were just relying on, let's get the ball to Nathan Flanagan, let's get the ball to John Robertson, let's make something happen here. Whereas Edinburgh had a distinctive way they wanted to play in this game, and it might have been quite chaotic, and you might be relying on just like aggression and energy. But it worked, and that's where McIndoe's, I'm going to use his alchemy, his sorcery that he's got with this group of players. That's how he's able to eke that out for them. Because we've seen now with East Kilbride patently a good team. Because last time we spoke about them is when they'd beaten East Kilbride, when they'd beaten Forfar Athletic 5-0. And yeah, Stuart Morrison might have had a really bad game. Now you still have to take advantage of the chance. You still need to put yourself in the position to score. And East Kilbride did that. Very competent performance. Their best performance since coming into the SPFL. Yeah. Competent, that sounds like I'm doing them a disservice. Comfortable performance, the most comfortable it's been for them. And so they are doing well. Just you're coming up against a manager who is one of the best coaches in the division. And that's it. What he has been able to wring out of that group of players, because it'll be the team with the highest budget in that division against the team with the lowest budget in the division. And you would not have known that by looking at it. And that is because the players are supremely fit and supremely well coached.
Yeah, fair play. I did not see that coming at that 2-1, but I was really chuffed that happened.
Yeah, it was good because I got speaking to Kirk Crichton. This was class actually. I got talking to Kirk Crichton, assistant manager. I was going into Meadowbank. I was going to take my usual seat as it's now become where I go. So that's the 3rd time I've been to Meadowbank this season. Guys, we're only midway through September. 3rd time I've been to Meadowbank. But I was going there, I bumped into Kirk Crichton, and you and I have met him. We met him at the Player of the Year event back in April. And class, really nice big guy, good to talk to. And I was asking him what his thoughts for the game were for the season ahead, and I was saying about the points deduction, and he said in a way that points deduction has helped galvanise the players, because even the players that went to the club last season that have come in over the summer, it just immediately brought everyone together under a united cause. Like, we need to chip away at this points deduction. This is the thing. That is the thing. Finishing in 9th place, that is the thing that is going to motivate us for the season ahead. But he also said, if you remember, that last October, middle of October, Edinburgh took on the Spartans at Meadowbank and beat them 2-0. It's a game that I was at. And that's when I finally was like, wow, this team are actually really, really good. This team are really, really good. He said that was the win that took them off the foot of the table. And what they have pinpointed now is if they can get off the foot of the table before the middle of October, it'll have proven to everyone that this year's team are better than last season's. So that's amazing. I burst out laughing when I heard that, just thinking that's incredible. That's what they're using as their motivation for this going forward. And you know something? No doubt the way they're playing at the moment. I mean, since that points deduction kicked in, they haven't lost a game. 8 games without defeat.
Uh-huh.
Any other team, you would think that if I said, I think they can finish in the top 4, any other team you'd be talking about thinking that's stupid. But then Edinburgh City are just a daft club. You know, they're just a team that doesn't make any sense. I think they can do it. If I was Stranraer, I'd be very nervous. Now, that's 5 points between the clubs, having played the same number of games. Be very nervous about that. Annan, very nervous. Elgin, Clyde, maybe less so. But I think that Edinburgh are coming for you. And I think that this match, again, just leans into what we've been saying a lot about this team since then. Just a right good group of players, right good manager. The players as well, like to touch on some of the players, Stokes had a good game. You've seen the highlights, what Stokes was doing. He's got this wee thing that he does, because he's got that really wee good burst of pace. I think he was up against, might have been Breen at one point, but he kicked the ball past him and then just got in front and leans into him. Do you know what I mean? He leans across him because he knows that if he gets kicked, it's a foul, it's going down, and he's able to hit the byline and put balls back across the face of goal. He had a great game. Robbie Mann had some really nice touches. Best player in the park though was Quinn Mitchell. Like what a performance for the fullback. You're up against
John Robertson, who I think most people regard as the best player in that
league.
Exactly.
Exactly. You're up against John Robertson, and it's not just that Robertson is technically a very gifted player. John Robertson's a really aggressive player as well.
Uh-huh.
And see if he can't use his skill to go by you, he can just bludgeon you. He can get his arse into you, and he can nibble at you. He can just get through you that way. And I mean, other than the shot that led to Elliott's goal, Robertson had a really quiet afternoon, and a lot of that was down to Mitchell. And once Mitchell got himself into the game, he was doing some really enterprising runs forward. There's one point he was able to take the ball for a wee wander, put it through someone's legs and play it into the middle of the park and keep on going. So he was really good. Just a player who I'm impressed with every time I see. But I think if you're from an Edinburgh perspective, a lot to be happy about with that.
Yeah, class. I think they will catch up with that 15 points within the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks or so.
And I think for East Kilbride, as we mentioned there, yes, satisfied to get away with the point, maybe slightly relieved as well. But I just wonder if we're seeing now a way that the Spartans did it in the opening game of the season and Edinburgh have done it, a way to you're able to nullify them and maybe get the better of them. And that's if you can, it takes a lot of doing. But see, if you're just like super aggressive in the press and you're prepared to run your socks off and get on top of them, then you can do it. And I mean, it's not a guarantee, of course, because East Kilbride's players, maybe more so than any other team in that league, are just so comfortable in the ball. You know, they have got a way that they want to play, and it's like having possession of the ball and building it from there. Might be a wee bit slow for some people's tastes, but it's been effective so far this season. But if you can just stop that from happening, and if you can, when that midfield player drops deep, if you're prepared to like sacrifice an attacking player to basically put a defensive player on top of him, just when he comes deep, you've got somebody right up his backside, and then you can cause him issues and pace as well. I mean, there's other things as well. We saw Spartans did it with guys like Cammy Russell, who are absolutely rapid. There's that first goal. That was a really high line that East Kilbride were playing. Really nice weighted pass with spinning it from Bradley Barrett. Really nice pass in from him. And there was Stokes able to get in front, do that wee thing we're talking about where he sort of gets in. And it's a good finish beyond Freddie Owens. So I think that's what we've seen there. But I think that East Kilbride will be able to kick on and go on from there.
I think so as well. And as much as I agree with what you're saying, it's easier said than done.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's easier said than done. It's because that there's quality and abundance in that East Kilbride team. So that should still. I mean, I'm not going to chuck the baby out with the bathwater on this one. I think it's just a bad day at the office. They, like we say, the last time we saw them in a league match, they'd absolutely thumped Forfar. You know, they've gone up to Elgin, they've beaten them twice this season. You know, so I think that I still would fancy East Kilbride very, very strongly. But like I say, it's just great to see Edinburgh continue to just chip away at this lead. And I think it'll be a bit of a red letter day when they eventually move off the bottom of the table, which I think they will. Just one final thing, Shaughan. How many times, whose highlights did you watch this? Did you watch Edinburgh's or East Kilbride's?
I watched both, but I watched East Kilbride's first.
Yes, so here's a question for you. How many times did the Edinburgh City commentator make the joke, you're meant to swap shirts after the game?
Too many. It was about 3 or 4, and I'll be brutal honest, I was kind of getting on my nerves a wee bit.
4 times he made the joke, you're meant to swap shirts after the game. Whereas, like, I watched the East Kilbride highlights. I was like, I've said it before, Frankie Ferry's class. Like, he's really got a chance. Really got a chance to be a commentator. Really good. So if you're the Edinburgh City commentator, maybe just listen to what your neighbour's doing there. And if you're going to make a joke, just make it the once, and then just make a note that you've made that joke, and you don't need to repeat it. Next up is East Kilbride are taking on Dumbarton at K Park.
Dumbarton are doing better than I expected them to. Regardless, I think this will be a home win. Yeah, I'm going for a home win as well. I think there'll be a big onus on East Kilbride to bounce back from this. But thinking back to the preview podcast, we did say that a team like Dumbarton might have the wherewithal to get in East Kilbride's faces and make things a bit difficult for them. But I can imagine Stevie Farrell panicking, and then they'll sit in deep, and then they'll be 3-0 down before they can react.
I completely forgot about that. That's a good point. Right, guys, we're going to play a 5-5-0 formation. As soon as East Kilbride get the ball, I want everyone into their own half. like the idea. Tony Wallace accidentally steps outside the centre circle, subbed off immediately for dissent. Be bold against him. That's it. Be bold against him. That's what Mackingall was, and he said
Stevie Farrell won't be. Stevie Farrell won't be bold. He'll be negative.
And then up next, this is a real interesting game: Clyde versus Edinburgh City. And before I get your predictions from this game, Shaughan, did you watch the highlights of Annan Athletic 0, Clyde 6?
Yes, I watched the Annan highlights involved a child shouting no, 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 no every time Clyde got near goal.
There was a bit, I watched Clyde's highlights, and there's a bit before the first goal, you hear someone shout, deal with it, just as the corner comes into the box, and needless to say, Annan didn't deal with it, and Clyde scored. I thought that Annan's defending was absolutely abysmal for some of the goals, like the second goal especially, really, really bad stuff. So many different points of failure for that. But conversely, Clyde were excellent. Clyde, you could tell when the highlights moved into the second half, you could just tell how confident the players were with some of their touches and some of their passing. And I think that it was albeit in the first half, Marley Redfern's second goal of the game, beautiful, beautiful goal. Absolutely. Was it James Hilton on the stand side? Incredible bit of skill to go past 2 players, and just a great goal. So Clyde, it hasn't been a great season so far, but there was a 4-0 win against Motherwell B last time out, and then beating Annan very comfortably here.
Obviously, Clyde fans have been absolutely kind of incandescent about how angry they've been about how the season started. Anytime I've watched highlights, Clyde have generally done okay. They've certainly created chances. I've always been of the impression that if they can start to put these chances away, then that totally turns things around. And I know that's quite a self-explanatory thing to say, but I did think that they weren't quite as poor as maybe some thought in terms of their performances this season. Perhaps.
They're not a side, to be honest, not a side I've paid too much attention to. It's only, there's that many highlights in the go. It's just that when I pick the games that you and I are going to cover and then just kind of watch them a couple of times to get a feel for the match. But yeah, Clyde were excellent here, and I think that Darren Young will hope this is the kind of performance that they can build on. But I think that only really tells half the story here, because after the match, Willie Gibson's post-match interview, my goodness, it's excoriating, I would describe it. He basically said that, he's the manager. I actually couldn't believe what I was watching here. He says that he's the manager, so he has to take the abuse from the stands, but there's not much he can do when his goalkeeper drops across for the first goal. He says the players are training well, but as soon as they cross the pitch, they're making mistakes. And then, I was absolutely aghast at, he said some of the players have chucked it. And then, so that's, he says some of the players have chucked it. The interviewer, see, if I was interviewing him, my next question would be, what do you mean by they've chucked it? What have you seen to suggest that? who are the players that have chucked it? What are you going to do to win it around? Oh, when's Keith Watson back from injury? Whoa. Stop. He's just said...
No, but I suppose you're scared. So maybe you wouldn't be, maybe I wouldn't be. But I got the impression that the person who is interviewing him is maybe 18, 19. So I don't think you're going to necessarily hold his feet to the fire. Whereas maybe you would, or maybe I might say something.
Aye.
But I know what you mean.
I just to say I thought that was just double check who was playing in Goldstone. It was like Zach Balfour. I mean, Zach Balfour's what, like 19, 18 years old. Like to dig out a young goalkeeper who's making his first starts in the game, that I'm getting abused. But it was the kid. It was the kid who dropped the cross. I thought, wow, that's just really bad. I don't think he went out to do it on purpose to drop the cross. And on top of that as well, there's a boy standing on the goal line who could have headed it, but Josh Todd flicks out a leg at it and takes it over his head. Don't know if you noticed that.
It felt like he was kind of looking for excuses and kind of running out of excuses by the time he got to that point. It was poor.
I thought it was really poor. But then there was the other curious thing that he said as well about he was asked about where two of the youngsters who have come in from Kilmarnock from this cooperation agreement, what's happened to them. And he said 2 of them have been part of the squad, but 2 of them have returned to their parent clubs because they're just not at the required level to make a difference for Annan. And I thought it was very interesting just about the idea of the cooperation agreement, that they're going to be a bit solipsistic here. In Stennismuir's case, it's working very well because the boy Ollie White has come in as a big, strong boy. But on top of that, he's got the quality and the fitness and the energy to really contribute to Gary Naismith's team. As you mentioned, Mikey Anderson can't get into the starting 11 at the moment. Whereas with some of these cooperation agreements, if you're not doing it properly, you're just going to get kids in who are just like bench warmers to make up the numbers, and it's not worth anyone's time, as Annan are finding out there at the moment. So it really, all is not well at Gallowbank. All's well. It's a shame because I really like Annan as a club. Say it a lot of times, favourite place to go to watch football outside Oakville View, and I really hope they can pull themselves out of this tailspin. But it's not looking good at the moment.
No, it's quite a horrible interview, and I know we kind of discussed them in terms of thinking they might struggle this season. And in general, they started really well, but they've started to slip away. But hopefully that's not the case going forward.
I mean, if you want to look at their stats, Shaughan, that's 1 win all season when they beat Elgin City 3-2 in quite an extraordinary game where they basically conceded an equaliser in injury time. They went straight to the park and scored. But since then, I mean, that's like in the league, that's like 3 consecutive. So they won on the opening day, followed up with 2 draws, and then that's 3 consecutive losses. So
there must be somebody within Annan as a club, as a board, and thinking they maybe need to reassess things in terms of who's in charge. Surely to goodness, without wanting to kind of come down on Willie Gibson. Like they've been dreadful now for whatever it was, 18 months, maybe more.
Maybe I think
unusual for a manager to still be in charge at this point.
I probably agree. I would never advocate for a manager to be sacked because that's not cool. But I think that reassess the situation is perhaps a euphemistic way of looking at things because it doesn't really feel like it's going to get much better for them. But anyway, sorry, we got sidetracked there. Clyde versus Edinburgh City. How do you see this one going?
Edinburgh City away win.
Very good. Now, Shaughan, we'll finish up. There's two bonus things to finish up on. We talk a lot about potential goal of the season contenders. Last time out, we spoke glowingly about Ewan Loudon's scorpion kick and Montrose's win over Aberdeen B. This time around, talking about Kane Hester's free kick and Elgin City's demolition of Stirling Albion. Ooh la la.
I think that the last time we spoke about Kane Hester in any kind of, I don't know how to describe it. The last time we discussed him at all was maybe in the TV show, and it might have been something like 17 goals in about, I don't know, maybe before Christmas or before January. And you maybe described him as the best forward in Britain. And then from that moment on, he has not done anything at all. He's had some interesting moves. He's went to Montrose, back again to Elgin. We hoped he could kick on. Hasn't really happened. But my goodness, see the first view of his goal at the weekend was incredible. But the other one, that was kind of like
almost behind it,
looking behind him. My goodness, absolutely exceptional.
The trajectory of that shot is fantastic because it's going in a pretty straight line, but then the closer it gets to goal, the more it begins to bend away from it. But it just does it in a way where it is postage stamp stuff in the top corner. Absolutely superb goal, and we hope that it can sort of reinvigorate him because you're right. Totally. I think that since that move to Montrose, it hasn't quite worked out for him. In fact, it didn't work out for him. And then subsequently the return to Elgin, it's been a bit lukewarm. That, however, is an absolutely incredible goal. Brilliant result as well to beat Stirling Albion, who might have to talk about them at some point in the future because I don't think things are going pretty well for Alan Maybury and co. But nevertheless, good for Elgin and good for Alan Hale, brackets left. And finally, Shaughan, finish this podcast with a video that we were both passed on Twitter from Darren Rice. It was from the weekend's game between Stranraer and the Spartans at Stair Park. And it's of someone called Willie Mack petting a docile pigeon. And just as he's about to hand the pigeon to a hirsute steward, the bird begins to flap in some kind of panic and the video cuts out. Darren, do let us know what happened to the pigeon. Did it attack Willie Mack? Did it go for the steward? Was it just flapping? Did it leave the ground peacefully? Do let us know.
I felt like I needed more in terms of that video. I mean, it was fine, but I do need more.
Excellent, Darren. Do get in touch. That'll do us for just now, Shaughan.
I think so.
Thank you very much for tuning into this podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you've made it through to the very end. And if you've liked this and you want to hear more, please subscribe to our Patreon for as little as $2.72 per month. That's the equivalent of £2 British. You can access a heck of a lot of bonus content. There's tons of great stuff up there and it is well worth your time. Patreon.com/Terrace Podcast. I'll be back next week to talk about lower league Scottish football. Shaughan won't. Shaughan is gallivanting around Italy. I wonder who I'll get paired with. We'll find out later. But while Shaughan's away gallivanting, you, the listener, enjoy your football. But unlike the Edinburgh City ball boy who deliberately antagonised the East Kilbride fans by celebrating Jason Jarvis's equaliser right in front of them, please do so respectfully. Thank you.